and the book hits a period of time that also, that 1979, 1980 period. It goes through that July of 1980 time period, and I mean it's got a ton of stuff in it. I don't want to lead with something that's going to sound too negative because it's not the intent, but
Well, that's
get
okay.
it, shoot the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Boy, is it proof that fact checkers should always have employment? Probably so. But my gosh, I mean, there's just a trove. I still haven't completely unpacked, jumping around and reading everything that's in there and really absorbed it. It's an item that as a fan, I'm proud that it's a current item. It's
Yeah.
cool to me
Yeah.
that it is a current item that is released now. It's a shiny new toy for something
Yes.
you
Yeah.
love. And
Yeah.
I'm viewing it largely that way, despite my maybe jaded entries into it.
Well, the thing when I first got it, and I got the standard version first because Genesis Publications sent me a review copy. Now I do have I think you can see it down there in the
Oh
yellow
yeah. Yeah.
cloth. I have this. I have the deluxe thing. Um, so what struck me first is shiny new toy. What you say. I got into it, and I was immediately kind of like in a time capsule vacuum. I immediately felt like I was in my teens again, discovering the Beach Boys. Like I haven't had something do that for me in a very, very long time, with any interest that I have. I mean, like if I want to have like that, I can do that if I put on the movie Miracle. I can have that happen a little bit. But I've seen the movie Miracle now. But when I went and saw it in the theaters, I had that experience where I went back in time because I was playing ice hockey as a kid at the time. I remember sitting in the room by myself eating ruffled potato chips with sour cream and onion dip, watching the Olympics and watching the U.S. team and listening to Al Michaels say, "Do you believe in miracles?" and me losing my mind. So, like, just talking about it now, I'm back there. So, when I got this book, this similar thing happened. I was transported. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And there's some things early in the book that really got me, which were like seeing Surfer's Rule was in Brian's handwriting. That was actually Surfer's Girl, but it was the lyrics. It was Surfer's Rule, and then seeing like the original lineup of the different song titles of some of those early albums in Brian's handwriting, and I just thought this is really cool. But as I went and I spent more time with it, and I got deeper into it, I would turn the page and I got to Wild Honey, and there's a song title missing. What's what's going on? How'd that happen? Oh, no big deal. Now, what struck me as a visual guy that I am, very quickly, because I'm turning the pages. Oh, this photo is out of sequence. No big deal. Turning the pages. Oh, this entire chapter page is out of sequence visually in terms of what year it should have been. Oh, I can live with it. I love the book. You're turning the pages, turning. Oh my gosh, how is that? How is that error in there? And I wrote it in the editor's notes of the fall edition of the magazine because someone had written. Well, Ian Rustin, who's a great historian, um, he had written on the Endless Harmony forum about these mistakes, and I used that and I put it into the letter section of the latest issue because I wanted it addressed. I don't know how they made that decision. I don't know who was included, who wasn't included, how much of a team they had involved. And as I write in the letters, I know when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, that can be as problematic as anything else. And at the same time, I think it's vital, especially when you're doing a one-off, one-of-a-kind deluxe book of this nature, you should have you should have like a top 5 list of historian and fact checkers to come in and look over everything you're doing. Now, and what I write in the letters is as much as those problems, I told the lady I dealt with at Genesis Publications and I told Howie Edelson both. Bravo, and I would recommend the book to anyone. And I mean that. I would recommend it to anyone if they want to learn about the Beach Boys because I don't think everyone's going to get as hooked on, oh, these photos are out of sequence or whatever, especially if they don't know any better. But the errors, there's a Ian wrote, which I thought was significant, and I don't know how much you thought it was significant, but there's a photo of the Beach Boys with Maharishi, and the information in the cut line is completely wrong. And it's like, how do you not know? So that's not, I don't know if I'm directing that statement at Howie Edelson or not. But if you're in charge, if you're given the keys and you're being placed with the care of a significant legacy act like the Beach Boys, because I've got the Beatles anthology book, and those types of mistakes aren't in there. They're not in there. And so I just keep wondering why these types of things continue to happen with the Beach Boys. And I can't sit here and tell you if it had been me, that wouldn't have happened. I can tell you with that specific image that wouldn't have happened because I know better. I've done a specific issue, the Spring 2018 Friends Edition. I had the right cut line information below that. But again, it takes time and research. So if Howie was submitting stuff to them and they said, well, your deadline is this, and they didn't really have enough time to provide everything, then they should have pumped the brakes and said, we have to wait another year. So, something should have happened and occurred where they said, we need to bring in other people to fact check. We need to do, because I know for a fact, Howie Edison, Alan Boyd, and Mark Lynette are the quill in their lines of work. I know they're great at what they do. So I don't know. And I don't want to poke the beast, so to speak, and say, why did you make these mistakes? Or how could you let this happen? Because number one, I'm not that enraged about it, right? So why bother? And number two, when I know for a fact, when you work hard and put a lot of energy and time into something, if you have a bunch of people coming at you and kind of, trying to tear something apart and, how could this happen? How could this happen? Those are legitimate questions. They are. But at the same time, I'm just not somebody who feels like badgering someone over out of sequence photos or stuff. It's just not, at the end of the day, nothing's going to change the book, no matter if, how many complaints I have about it. Nothing's going to change that book. The book is what it is. So it doesn't really behoove anybody to go to the person and say, why?
Yeah.
It's like false rage or something, because you just got to get over it and move on.
I bring it up because sometimes the mistakes are in the magic is in the mistakes sometimes. And it's like, okay, now but I mean, no, I mean, you have one of the current, regular cadenced opportunities to, okay, you know what? Yeah, this was there. Here's the real story. Like it's an opportunity to be an entry point to even further discovery. So I'll take that and spin it into a positive. So I'm with you. Let's not sling the arrows. It's just, okay, let's address it, because a lot of people who are diehards went there. And it's like, like we talk all the, like, I work in the sports industry. There's no question the NFL is king. Sometimes other sports, you say, well, why are you being critical? And like, do you want me to treat it like the NFL? Like, because but the Beach Boys are at that level where anything about them.
That's right.
You in one of the issues you talked about, in some ways, this documentary, this book was a really good balancing of the scales of, the historical, weight given to it, because in some ways it had been, left aside, not in all ways, but in some way. But it's part of this is, okay, you want to talk about like the A+ listers or A+ listers, then this is part of the spotlight that is going to be part of the territory. So it's all an opportunity to be a gateway to further discovery. And I think that's I think one of the neat opportunities that, this is a living, breathing thing. And, I think ESQ, you are incredibly accessible, whether it's, with the letter. I mean, you could read an issue and there's 10 pages of letters in there. I mean,
well, the last one sure was. Holy smokes.
But it's like you give, and look, yes, you give people their say. It's a conversation, and you could have differences of opinion without making the other person bad or wrong. And I think that's a great message.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that I find just in society, generally speaking, and I think this when I'm saying this, I'm thinking more about the internet as a whole, social media interaction, is that we spend a lot of time, people seem to spend a lot of time arguing about who's right. And what we all have to understand is we're all right from our perspective, right? We're all right. So it doesn't really matter who's right or wrong. It's the root of it, if you're a Beach Boys fan, is that you're a Beach Boys fan. It doesn't matter which guy you like the most. It's you're a Beach Boys fan. That's the root of it. And that's where it starts and that's where it ends, as far as I'm concerned. If you're a Beach Boys fan, hop on in.
Yeah.
Because I love talking about the Beach Boys. They're fascinating. They're deserving. And their music has done so much, and just their music has done so much. Now, granted, when I say that out loud, I think about everything. I think about All This Is That. I think about Brian's Lonely Sea, because that's so heart-achingly beautiful. I think about I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. I think about Bruce's Disney Girls. I just think about it all. And it's such a vast I think about Roller Skating Child. It doesn't matter. It's Ding Dang. It's just, it's all in there. It's all in this flurry of, have you ever heard Life is for the Living from the Adult Child album?
I'm not.
Oh my God. I'm hoping that'll be like I'm getting off track here, but I'm hoping that'll be like the next box set, because that is nuts. I'm just going to do a little bit for the viewers who have not heard it. It's Carl Wilson singing lead, and the opening line is, "Life, ba-dum-ba, is for the living. Ba-dum-ba, don't sit around on your ass, smoking grass. That stuff went out a long time ago." So there you go. That's like after Love You. See, now I'm hoping that's going to be like the next big box set, like Love You outtakes and the Adult Child album, because he only worked on 3 or 4 songs with Dick Reynolds. Dick Reynolds, who did the 1964 Christmas album with Brian, he did the traditional songs with the Beach Boys. Dick Reynolds came back in the mid 70s with Brian and worked on a few songs, Life is for the Living being one of them. And Still I Dream of It and It's Over Now were actually on the box set. And Brian had actually recorded those and wanted Frank Sinatra to record them, which never happened, unfortunately. But Brian was ambitious. Brian's always been an ambitious songwriter. But again, getting off track. But it's just this, it's their music. I don't look at their music, again, right or wrong discussion. I don't look at the Beach Boys catalog as one element being better than the other. If it reaches you and it speaks to you, that's the goal of the foundational everything, right? Whether it's the voice or the lyrics or the arrangement, whatever, or all of it, that's the beauty of who the Beach Boys are.
I'm going to use that to launch to one of the other things that's in that the summer issue, the summer edition, and that is your field trip to Anna Maria Island when you saw Al and the crew. Because that, it sounded like there was, a bit of that variety of things that you could experience, and in a setting that made total sense. And you just painted such a picture of being there in what was such an intimate setting. But it sounds like Al kind of takes that. Al in particular seems to take that variety of moods to heart in every time he takes the stage.
Yeah, Al has I think Al, anyone who's ever met Al, spoken to Al, or spent time with Al knows that he's a very rooted family guy, and that he's often soft-spoken. He's not allowed. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to express what he's thinking or what's on his mind, which I love. It's kind of like a heart on the sleeve type of personality. And it was really interesting to me during the show and in the review, the one point where they're getting ready to do Surf's Up, and it's this kind of community center that he's performing in, and so way over to the one side is this. People are getting up from their seats and going over and getting drinks and coming back to their seats. And he's ready to do Surf's Up. And now I never in a million years would have thought he'd be doing Surf's Up. Not because it's not a great song, because it's one of my favorites, but it's, you're in this community center. I thought the set list was going to be a little bit more like a Mike Love set list, right? Just a bunch of hits so that everybody could sing along and dance, which would have been appropriate. But Al, being Al, has this, and he's always had this. He has this artistic paintbrush he's never going to put it down. He's never going to put that paintbrush down. And he wants the audience or the listener to experience the grand picture of everything the Beach Boys are. And I love that about him. So, here he is, he's trying to tell the audience, okay, here's this song. He's trying to explain Surf's Up, and they're all busy getting drinks and getting up and talking and everything. And he just kind of goes, yeah. And he just turns away because it's time for Matt to start singing. And it's like, he kind of surrenders to the fact that nobody's really paying any attention to this really wonderful and important song in the group's history. And so Matt steps up to the microphone, and you have this chatter going on, right? This isn't Good Vibrations. This isn't Gotta Get Around or Fun, 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 or God Only Knows or Wouldn't It Be Nice, or Surfing USA or any of that. This is this important artistic statement from Brian Wilson. So Matt gets up and starts singing with, and you've seen Matt in concert. I mean, oh my God, when Matt Jardine sings, oh. So he starts singing the diamond necklace. I'm not even, but the words, yeah. And he's singing it, and I'm just sitting there going, wow. And slowly, people are kind of starting to pay attention, and they're slowly, but it's a full verse in now. And then he starts the second verse, and there's still chatter. And I'm watching this, and I'm going, I can't believe he's doing this song. This is amazing. And I'm just kind of letting it wash over me. So by the time they get to like halfway through the song, it's finally quiet, but people still don't know what the heck they're listening to. So there's that problem. And I don't know how many people in the audience genuinely knew this is Surf's Up from Smile. This is Surf's Up, or the Surf's Up album, But finally, because of Matt, and because of Matt's emotional devotion to what he was doing, and how locked in he was to his intention, right? He was 100%. I am giving myself to this. It's time for me to sing this. It's coming out. And it wasn't just that he was performing it. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. It wasn't the performative element of it. It was the emotional element of it. And so by the time the song ends, even if people didn't know it, they were there with him because he was doing it so well. And that was powerful. Just that coda, the children's song and the music that they play, and the song is love and the children know I'm just like, oh. And I was sitting right next to Myrna Smith. Now, her son, Marty Smith, and he was just like, so for those people who don't know who Myrna Smith is, Myrna Smith was the lyricist for Carl Wilson's 2 solo albums. And she co-wrote a couple of the songs that Carl wrote for the 1985 Beach Boys album too. So Myrna was a lyricist. She's no longer here. She was one of the Sweet Sensations, sang background for Elvis Presley. So I was sitting with her son, and he was gobsmacked. He just was like, wow. And he knows the song, but he loved the set list. That the familiar songs were there, but they were also doing these deep. Marty loved it when they did Sail on Sailor. He just was all about it. He just loved the flavor and the change and everything. So I really liked, that's the first concert, Beach Boy member concert that Marty and I had attended together. So that was really cool to see his reactions and to have him reacting almost the same way that I was. And I've been to how many shows? But I still love that there is this surprise element. And I experience that if I go to a Mike show, because I know what to kind of expect from Mike. I know that I'm going to probably, and actually I thought this year's show that I went to of Mike's in June, I really enjoyed it because it was more of just kind of the endless summer music. It was kind of more just hits, because in recent years, Mike's been throwing in like Pisces Brother and other things from his solo career, which I don't mind. But for Mike to do like a full show of just Beach Boys songs was I enjoyed it a little bit more. It spoke to kind of the whole narrative of America's band and everything. It felt really good to go to a summer show, watching the Beach Boys and hearing just a bunch of familiar songs. I really like that. But Al, yeah, I love and for those who don't know it, if for some reason you've been living in a closet, Al, there was a big announcement in an interview with Andy Green on Rolling Stone magazine online that Al is in talks and discussions and working out the configuration of touring with Brian's band with Al kind of front and center. So I'm excited about that and looking forward to that because we're getting into live performance here, so I want to make this statement because it's important. I have met all the band members in Brian's band, and I've met all the band members through the years in both factors, or whether they were together in 2012 or what have you. And I will tell everyone, if you don't know this, all those musicians deserve our respect. All of them. They all care. They're all passionate. Whether they're no longer in the groups or whether they just join the group, they deserve our respect and appreciation. They're not there by mistake, right? And they all love the catalog and they all have deep respect for the catalog, just as we do as fans, because they're fans. You know, even those who would say John Stamos, whatever their opinion of John is, I'm guilty of liking John probably more than most because he's so good to my son. Okay, but with that said, I don't think Forever should have been on the Summer in Paradise album. Guilty. I don't mind John's affiliation with the Beach Boys. I think he's been good for them, particularly for Mike, because when John comes to a show, I'm sure their ticket sales are better. I don't think that's a bad thing. And if more girls show up, I don't think that's a bad thing. And what I tell people, and this is going out on a limb, but I don't mind. I feel like the limb's pretty strong and it's not going to break underneath me. If Dennis Wilson were alive today and he found out that John Stamos covered his song and he were still the drummer in the Beach Boys, or maybe say Dennis isn't the drummer anymore, but he's still around and he sings, do I, for one brief, even minutia moment, think to myself that Dennis Wilson would be opposed to having John Stamos come on stage with him? And the answer is no. He'd be all about it. He'd be like, girls? Yeah, girls? I mean, are you kidding me? So anybody, and I do think the fact that John made the song Forever popular on Full House is a testament to Dennis Wilson's songwriting ability. And I love the fact that Dennis Wilson's music lives on. I don't care how it lives on. The fact that it lives on. And if people walk up to John Stamos thinking Forever is a John Stamos song, so what? It don't matter. It doesn't matter because Dennis Wilson wrote it. I know that. You know that. And most people watching this know that. So it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the beautiful thing about it is that Dennis's music lives on.
There's a lot there I want to get to. So let me bear with me here. Because there's a lot. It's you struck a good chord there. So I didn't live in the 60s. I was born in 1982. How did I become a Beach Boys fan? Growing up in Connecticut, being born in 1982. Well, my dad was a Beach Boys fan, diehard. My mom went along for the ride, loved the music, but my dad was the diehard. He saw them for the first time in 1965. He hitchhiked home from a concert in New Haven. And, had to explain to his parents where he was. They said the Who, the whole thing, so it's deeply rooted. We would listen to the Beach Boys cassette tape ad nauseum on the car rides to and from Florida or wherever we were going. That's how but, as a kid, it's kind of like, okay, this could be good music, but if it's your dad's music, you don't want to admit that it's really cool. But the second it was on Full House, which was the sitcom you were watching, oh, now this group that dad likes is cool. Right? So that's the impact it could have. So, I mean, fast forward, but you talk about, the experience and it's Mike's group. I think they did 27 dates in the month of August. You find me some groups that are doing 27 dates in the year. But when I saw them at the very end of that at the Greek Theater in LA, and they threw Let 'Em Run Wild into the set list. It was I mean, they did, I think it was 42 or 43 songs. And like I grew, I was a really diehard Springsteen fan
Okay.
before kind of replacing that live experience with various forms of Beach Boys concerts for a variety of reasons. It took me 5 shows until I heard Thunder Road for the first time. I mean, think about that. Like, so I'll give credit to, yeah, give people what they want to hear. And then, but there is a mix to it. But you talk about that hitting people where, how many people who went to those shows? It's going to be well over 100 shows. Like, you're talking thousands upon thousands of people who might never have known who Dennis Wilson was when they walked into that show. But now they know if they hear Forever. Or Do You Want to Dance from Bruce, giving it like you are learning about the different members in those shows with the video that's on the screen, and just it's really a great way to I bet you people who go to those shows who might be first timers, they're in the car ride home on their phones looking up things about this band, wanting to find more information.
I
It's
hope so. I would like, yeah, I'd like to hope so because again, but again, if you come from the generation that you discovered Forever through John Stamos on Full House, you may not be that intrigued, right? I mean, because if that's your exposure to it, and you go to a show and John Stamos is there and he does Forever, that's what you went to see. That was your connection to it. You're not critical of the Summer in Paradise album because you don't have it because you don't care.
yeah.
Right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
that's the part of the whole discussion that I try to convey, never forcibly, which is probably why I'm not successful. But I always, when I'll come across discussions on Facebook or in communities or something or in forums or whatever, where somebody's knocking somebody for liking something, it's just like, let them like what they want to like. Stop telling them they're wrong because they're not wrong. They're not wrong. What they love is what they love. The connection that they make to this catalog is as vital, as meaningful, and is of value to them. Where you may like Surfin' USA, that album, that early, I was born in '65. I don't remember the first Beach Boys song I heard. But I can tell you the galvanizing moment was I saw the Jan and Dean TV movie in late '79 or early '80, Dead Man's Curve, to which Mike Love, Bruce Johnston, and Dick Clark make cameos at the end. And I thought, oh, there's this, and I don't remember, there was no Google back then. And there's a scene in that TV movie for a young man, 14-year-old, 14, 15-year-old, which was the moment. I did not know the song Surfin' was a Beach Boys song. All I know is the two actors, Richard Hatch and Bruce Davidson, were standing with surfboards at the ocean. Richard Hatch, as Jan, says to Bruce Davidson, playing Dean, "This would sound so great on tape." He's talking about the surf. And he goes, "What?" He goes, "This. It sounds so great on tape." And he goes, "What?" And in a second, the editing, they're suddenly in the studio and they're recording Surfin'. To me, that was a Jan and Dean song. All I know is like that moment of standing at the edge of the ocean, in the studio, singing about what they were about to do, was the moment for me. It just changed me. And then before I knew it, within, I don't know what the period of time was, back then you could go anywhere, to any record store, anywhere. I went and bought the Jan and Dean Anthology album, 2-record set, which had liner notes in it, told you who Jan and Dean were what cars they were driving and who they were dating. They flipped girlfriends at one point. It's crazy stuff. But there, I read about Brian Wilson. There, I see that Brian Wilson and Mike Love wrote Surfin'. I see that Surf City came from Brian Wilson. I see that Drag City comes from Brian. So I'm like, oh my gosh! So all this influence, this sound, happened from over here. But wait a minute. Surfing, the whole bom bom dip 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 dip, that came from Jan and Dean. So it's just, so then I'm like, okay, it's almost like holding one coin with two sides of it and going, I'm just going to keep the coin.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep the coin because it's no matter what, I win.
Yeah.
And from that point on, just from that point on, it was amazing to me because Jan and Dean, because of Jan's accident, they never really went beyond a certain type of sound. They did get into, Dean does do the Save for a Rainy Day album. Their Folk and Roll album, which came out in '65, is one of my favorites. A great, incredible version of Yesterday. Dean has gone on record and said that he heard Paul McCartney say that's one of his favorite covers of it. I don't know if that's true. I've never read it myself, but so just that piggybacking off of and having that introduce me to the Beach Boys. And I remember Pet Sounds being one of my first albums because I could say, okay, now I'm aware of the Beach Boys. I went to the Beach Boys bin at the same store where I bought the Jan and Dean record. And I remember Pet Sounds was there and I thought, this looks like an interesting cover. I'll buy this. I went home and listened to it and it did not click. I just thought, huh. I think I remember liking That's Not Me a little. But I don't remember the rest of it really registering. Fast forward about 8 years. I'm driving in my car. I'm in my early 20s. I have the cassette of Pet Sounds. And it hit me like, I didn't pull over to the side of the road, but it hit me. And I just went, holy crap. I've had this record all these years. And suddenly, and I don't know if it was because Brian did it when he was 24 years old. I don't know what it was, but it just spoke to me on a whole just musical, lyrical level that I changed that day. And then not long after that, within a few years, I discovered the Smile bootlegs. And then I've been stuck in the rabbit hole ever since. And I have no intention of leaving. But so that's the thing also, is you have a fan who goes, how could you love Smile as much as you do? But also I have an understanding and appreciation for Summer in Paradise. It's the same group.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.